In a development that has sent shockwaves across the international community, China has strongly condemned the United States after Washington carried out a targeted military strike on what it claimed were facilities linked to Iran's nuclear program. The incident has dramatically heightened global tensions, sparking fears of escalation in the Middle East and drawing strong reactions from countries around the world. According to initial reports, the U.S. military launched precision strikes late last night, targeting suspected nuclear enrichment sites in Iran. American defense officials argued that the move was necessary to curb what they described as Tehran's accelerating push towards nuclear weapons capability. U.S. sources maintain that Iran had been working to expand uranium enrichment at an alarming pace, and that the strike was intended to halt those efforts before they reached what Washington has long referred to as a red line. Iranian officials, however, have strongly denied these accusations, insisting that their nuclear program remains peaceful and designed solely for civilian energy and medical purposes. Tehran quickly denounced the U.S. action as an act of aggression and a violation of international law. Within hours of the attack, Iran's foreign ministry issued a statement calling the strike a blatant assault on Iran's sovereignty and vowing that the country would respond at a time and place of its choosing. Crowds gathered in Tehran and other cities, chanting anti-American slogans and demanding a firm response from the government. The situation is rapidly evolving, but it is clear that this U.S. strike has opened a new and dangerous chapter in already strained relations between Washington and Tehran. China's reaction has been particularly strong and unambiguous. In a press briefing held in Beijing, a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry said that the country strongly condemns the unilateral military action taken by the United States against Iran. Beijing emphasized that any strike against another sovereign state without United Nations approval is a violation of international law and a direct threat to regional stability. The spokesperson further added that the use of force in such matters would only deepen conflict and instability in the Middle East, a region already plagued by decades of war and geopolitical rivalries. China has long advocated for dialogue and diplomacy in dealing with Iran's nuclear issue, and this latest development appears to harden its position against Washington's approach. Internationally, the strike has created sharp divisions. U.S. allies in Europe have responded cautiously, with some expressing concern about Washington's decision to act without broad international consensus. Germany, France, and the United Kingdom called for calm and urged all parties to avoid further escalation, stressing that diplomacy must remain the only way forward. Russia, on the other hand, joined China in condemning the strike, calling it reckless and dangerous. Moscow reiterated its stance that Iran's nuclear activities do not pose an imminent threat and accused Washington of seeking to destabilize the region for strategic gains. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, reactions have been mixed. Israel welcomed the strike, with prime ministerial officials describing it as a necessary step to protect global security. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, long wary of Iran's growing influence, remain silent but are expected to view the U.S. move favorably. Inside the United States, the strike has sparked intense political debate. Supporters of the administration argue that Washington had no choice but to act decisively to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, which they believe would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the Middle East. Critics, however, accuse the government of bypassing diplomatic channels and escalating a situation that could spiral into a wider conflict. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are already demanding briefings from defense officials, and it is expected that this issue will dominate discussions in Washington for weeks to come. For Iran, the strike presents a major challenge. Analysts say that while Tehran is unlikely to directly engage in a full-scale war with the United States, it may seek to retaliate through proxy groups in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, or Yemen. Already, Iranian-backed militias have vowed revenge, raising fears of new attacks on U.S. personnel and facilities across the region. Iran's leadership may also accelerate its nuclear program in defiance of Washington, further complicating efforts to de-escalate. The possibility of cyber attacks, missile launches, or other asymmetric responses cannot be ruled out. China's role in this crisis is being closely watched. As one of Iran's biggest trading partners and a key player in the global energy market, Beijing's voice carries significant weight. China has repeatedly opposed sanctions on Iran and has called for the preservation of the 2015 nuclear deal, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. With Washington's strike now threatening to unravel even the remnants of that agreement, Beijing appears determined to rally international support against unilateral military actions. Analysts suggest that China's strong condemnation may not only be about defending Iran, but also about countering U.S. power and reinforcing Beijing's image as a champion of multilateralism. The global oil market has already reacted nervously to the news, with crude prices spiking amid fears of disruption to supplies from the Gulf. Iran, as a major oil producer located near critical shipping lanes such as the Strait of Hormuz, plays a pivotal role in global energy security. Any prolonged conflict or instability in the region could have far-reaching consequences for markets worldwide. Economists warn that if tensions escalate further, global inflationary pressures could intensify, adding strain to economies already facing challenges from supply chain disruptions and geopolitical uncertainty. Ordinary people in Iran now find themselves caught in the middle of this dangerous standoff. Reports from Tehran suggest that many citizens are deeply anxious about what might come next. Memories of previous conflicts and sanctions are still fresh, and many fear that another round of instability could further damage Iran's already struggling economy. For ordinary Americans, too, the possibility of a new prolonged military engagement in the Middle East raises questions about the costs and consequences of foreign policy decisions. The United Nations has called an emergency meeting of the Security Council to address the situation. Diplomats say that discussions will be tense, with the U.S. expected to justify its actions as a matter of self-defense while Russia and China push for a strong resolution condemning Washington's strike. Whether the international community can reach a consensus remains uncertain, but the stakes are undeniably high. The outcome of these talks could shape the direction of global diplomacy in the months ahead. In the coming days, the world will be watching closely for signs of what Iran's response might be, and how the United States and its allies will react in turn. The risk of miscalculation looms large, and the potential for a wider conflict cannot be dismissed. What is clear is that Washington's decision to strike Iran's nuclear facilities has reignited one of the world's most volatile flashpoints, with China emerging as one of the most vocal critics of U.S. policy. As tensions mount, the urgent need for dialogue, diplomacy, and restraint has never been greater.